So I guess the essence of what I'm saying is that cancer, when cancer happens, it is the failure of a system of checks and balances. The checks and balances are that cells are programmed to automatically die. It's called cellular suicide or apoptosis. I think it's the word. Something like that. And that the ability of a cell to, well, it's not ability. It's not really a choice because there's not, it's not like intellect like you and I would understand it. But when a cell mutates in a way that it just starts growing and growing and growing and consuming and consuming and consuming and getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and not just the cell, but the cluster of cells that are the progeny of the cell, and taking over all those nutrients, that's cancer. And so in biology, the check on that is the immune system. We have specific immune cells in our body that run around and gobble up cancer. And there are also things that we can take, to stop cancer. Interestingly, this is an article that was published in RiseEarth.com by Sasso Dekovic. Statistics show that breast cancer is the most common tumor among women. It accounts for 22.9% of all cancers in women across the globe. Since the 1990s, numerous preclinical studies have demonstrated the anti-tumor effects of cannabinoids in a variety of cancers. This is pot. Cannabinoid receptors are overexpressed in tumor cells. Studies also show that when cannabinoids are administered and bind to these receptors, they're able to inhibit cancer cell growth by preventing the proliferation of cancer cells and by inducing cancer cell death. Apoptosis, however you say that word. Furthermore, cannabinoids have been found to impair both tumor angiogenesis, the increase in local blood flow caused by tumor cells, and metastasis, the spreading of cancer to other organs. So pot does that. Broccoli does that too if you eat it raw. It's got two different compounds in it that combine in your mouth and in your digestive system into a third compound, which is highly active against cancer. And if you cook the broccoli, one of those two enzymes, one of those two chemicals is an enzyme, and that enzyme gets destroyed. But you can add it back in by putting ground up mustard on the broccoli, and boom, you can get the cooked broccoli, and you can still get the anti-cancer effect. But the point is that in nature, there's these balancing systems. So where are the balancing systems in an economy or in a body politic? Typically, in the political world, the balancing system has been, how do we keep money out of politics and yet enable the players in our political game, as it were, or the political playing field, or whatever you want to call it, allow those players to be able to use money to communicate their message and do the things that you have to do when you run for office. I mean, you can't just say, okay, no money in politics, because that would mean that only wealthy people could run for political office. On the other hand, if you say unlimited money in politics, as our Supreme Court has said, then you have politicians going to the second richest family in America, the Koch brothers, and kissing their ring, and going to Sheldon Adelson and kissing his ring, and for that matter, Tom Steyer and kissing his ring. I mean, you have billionaires defining their particular agendas, and in many cases, the political agenda. I would submit to you that the entire Republican Party's platform, everything you're going to hear in the Republican debates, is all about what's best for the billionaires. And this is the cancer stage of politics. So this was, an attempt to regulate this was what we did in 1973 after the Nixon scandals, after Watergate, and after Nixon resigned, and the church committee hearings and all this stuff, and we discovered all these ways that our politics have been corrupted, mostly by money. I mean, we know of several very specific bribes that Richard Nixon took, personally. The milk industry bribed him. Jimmy Hoffa bribed him to get out of a criminal investigation into the Sun Valley land deal. There were a number of bribes that Nixon took. So, of course, that was flat out illegal. But the political system that Nixon had been running in the White House had a lot of money sloshing around it. So anyhow, we passed all these rules and regulations to regulate money in politics. In other words, to constrain cancer in politics. And the Supreme Court started blowing those up in 1976 with the Buckley versus Vallejo decision, in 77 with First National Bank versus Bellotti. They extended that logic from individuals to corporations. The corporations had First Amendment rights, and the corporations could, and the money was not money, it was speech, and all this kind of nonsense. And then in Citizens United, they put it on steroids and made it the overarching political. So now you've got all this invisible money coming from invisible sources owning so many people in our political class that were arguably full on in that cancer stage. And now, for the first time, at least that, well, actually, no, this is the second time. Ross Perot is a billionaire too. So we had a billionaire running for president back in 1992, and we've got a billionaire running for president right now in the form of Donald Trump. Is this a problem? Or is it just as much a problem when the billionaires sit in the back and say, we'll just pull the strings? Or do we really have not so much a political problem, but a billionaire problem? I mean, is that not in and of itself a form of cancer?